Hey guys, coming at you today with a little how to use my recipes to make a delicious cake perfect for St. Patty's Day, a Baily's Irish cream cake. But obviously we're not using Baily's, so we'll just call it Alycia's Keto Irish cream cake. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a pastry chef. I've been a chef most of my life and now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, and I'm here to show you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best recipes possible. So if you enjoy this type of content, please hit the subscribe button down there, give the video a thumbs up, leave me comments, and share with all your friends and family. It all helps me help you make the best recipes possible and bring you new videos every Saturday. Today, a cake I've never actually made before, but I have all the videos on my channel already. So I'm going to show you how to combine them to make a chocolate cake with an Irish cream, whipped cream filling, and a whiskey ganache frosting on top. To do that, we're going to have to start with the ganache, because when you do a whipped ganache, you need the ganache completely set at room temperature so that you can whip it up into a light and fluffy melt in your mouth frosting. So a regular ganache is pretty simple, but of course when you throw keto into the mix it gets a little bit more complicated, so I will link up there my keto ganache chocolate review and explanation of like different chips and stuff. But for a frosting you can usually just get away with doing equal weights of chocolate to cream. I'm going to use the Bake Believe semi-sweet chocolate chips and heavy cream, but I am going to add a little bit of whiskey in place of some of the heavy cream to give it a little bit of a whiskey flavor. And I also happen to have some Irish cream flavoring, so I'm going to add some of this to that too. No matter what chips you use, you can always add a little bit of liquid stevia if you want a sweeter ganache. I'm actually making this cake for my sister-in-law, and she's not a huge fan of the erythritol. She gets the cooling effect quite a bit. So I had to think of something to do that didn't involve like a buttercream where you need a lot of bulk sweetener to make a frosting. Do 9 ounces of the semi-sweet, and this might be way more than we need. I'm just making extra just to be safe. I'll obviously have all the measurements down below, but what I usually do is just reference all my different videos where I have a whipped ganache frosting, which I have a couple of them. So that was 9.2 ounces. So I'm going to take a couple chips away. So that's kind of cool. You're paying for 9 ounces, you get a little extra. And then I'm going to do just 1 ounce of whiskey in here, which is 2 tablespoons. And we're going to pretend this is Irish whiskey. We're not big drinkers, and if he does drink, it's usually like a bourbon and making like a fancy cocktail out of, not just whiskey. So pretend it's Jameson. I am going to add a little bit of whiskey to the cake also. I do have a whiskey caramel cake that I did last year for St. Patty's Day, and I did half and half with buttermilk and whiskey, and it tasted a lot like whiskey. So I'm not going to put as much in because we're putting some in the ganache, and Baily's isn't like super heavy whiskey forward. It just has like a hint of whiskey. So that we're gonna go up to 9 ounces. So you need a cup of cream. Okay, I'm gonna throw that in the microwave. Actually, I'm gonna put it on the stove to warm. I've never put alcohol in the microwave, so it kind of worries me. We're gonna be safe. I just have that on low heat. I just want it simmering around the edges and it's starting to steam. Since we have this out already, I'm just going to measure out the buttermilk we need for the cake. So for buttermilk, I usually just do a teaspoon or 2 of vinegar. You can also use lemon juice to make your own keto buttermilk. So I just usually do 0.2 ounces or 0.4 for if I'm doing 10 ounces. So I need 10 ounces of liquid total. So whatever you want to put in here, I'm gonna do 9 ounces and then do 1 ounce of whiskey. Make some serious buttermilk. So that liquid is ready for our cake batter. Just gave it a little swirl, just about to boil, simmer around the edges. Pour it over. Make sure it covers all the chips. Let that sit for 5 minutes. And while that's sitting, we'll get the ingredients ready for our cake. So like I said, she doesn't like a lot of erythritol, but she has eaten my cake before and been fine with the amount of erythritol. But she also doesn't like things super sweet either, so I'm probably gonna cut this down a tiny bit on the bulk sweetener. I've cut it down only to about a half cup before and used a little bit of stevia for my son, so I know it'll work. So I'm just gonna cut it down by a quarter cup. So I'm just gonna do 1 cup, which is 192. And to that, I'm gonna add 12 ounces of avocado oil. You can use butter for my cake recipes, it works fine, and I usually prefer it because it is cheaper. And this makes a big enough cake that I'm actually gonna make 3 cupcakes too, so that way we give this a taste, because obviously I can't cut into my sister-in-law's birthday cake. At least not until we eat it tonight. So, put this on the mixer, and while this is going, you can get all your dry ingredients ready. We have 1 more minute before we gotta stir our ganache. So we'll start the dry ingredients. I've used several kinds of protein powders to make chocolate cake. This is IsoPure, it has 0 carbs per scoop. I've used Perfect Keto and I've used Keto Chow to make my cake. If you do use Keto Chow, minus the xanthan gum, almost all the way, because it has so many gums in it already, your batter will be super thick. It's 5 minutes, so you give it a whisk. And I'm just gonna put a teaspoon of this Irish cream, in the ganache. Maybe I'll start with a half teaspoon and give it a taste, because it's kind of powerful. And I'm gonna taste it for sweetness too. Like I said, she doesn't like things super sweet though, so I don't have any spoons over here. So. Tastes like whiskey and Irish cream. Nice. Okay, this can be set behind us to stiffen up, and once it stiffens, we can whip it. So we need 120 grams of a chocolate whey protein. So it's 1.5 cups. And that's if you take it and scoop it up. It'll be a cup is supposed to be 80 grams. And we need 75 grams of coconut flour, which should be 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons. It's just so much easier to weigh than trying to get a bunch of measuring cups out. And more accurate. Now I used to add a teaspoon of xanthan gum to my cake recipes, and since then, I don't know if the stuff I had was just old when I was making my other recipes or figuring them out, but I put 1 teaspoon in when I did a cake, well, it's probably a year ago now, and it was so gloopy and thick, I ended up having to redo my calculations and stuff on new recipes because I only put in 1/2 teaspoon now. And I found that all brands can vary, so now I just stick with Anthony's brand. I was getting Great Value brand, but that one seemed like almost 3 times stronger. And trying to cut things into thirds is way more of a pain than trying to cut things in half. So I'm sticking with Anthony's for now. And then 1 teaspoon of baking powder, which is usually about 3 grams. We are gonna add salt. I always forget to add salt because I'm so used to using salted butter, but you should put in 3/4 of a teaspoon. There's about 1/4 teaspoon of salt in each stick of butter. That's it. I do the trick with baking soda and vinegar at the end. I read it when I was trying to figure out a red velvet cake recipe. I looked up regular ones, and that was something someone did to give real good lift and stuff on her cake, and it worked great for keto baked goods to give us a nice lift and it doesn't sink. Nice and light and fluffy cake. Whisk them all together, and then all we need are our eggs and 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, which that's going in at the very end. And the last thing is the eggs, and eggs have been varying widely in size, so I've been measuring my eggs out. We need 4 large eggs or 200 grams. As long as you come close, you'll be fine. Each one's supposed to be 50 grams. I already have my oven preheated to 350 also. This batter, once everything's weighed out, super easy to put together, right into the oven. So we're a little bit over, but that should be fine. You just don't want to be like 10 grams over or under. Okay, let's get our sweetener and oil whisking. You just want it to be a little bit less greeny in there. Oh, might need to lift my bowl up. Forgot to mention, while that's going, I'm going to spray and parchment 2 8-inch round pans. Do want to stop and scrape the sweetener back in a little bit. I want it to get a little whipped up and pale. Sweetener will also get dissolved a little bit when we put the eggs in and whip it up real good. So we can add the eggs next. Should be all harmonious in there. Scrape down, eggs a little bit more whipped in. Then we're just gonna alternate wet and dry ingredients. Very similar to a regular cake. The only difference is our flour is a mix of a couple of things. I may have forgot the cocoa powder in our mix. I'm like, that's not looking right. Why is that? So we need 68 grams, which our half cup is 48, and each tablespoon is 6 grams. Just weigh it, it's so much easier. I have all my kitchen essentials linked in my Amazon shop page now. It all makes it so much easier to bake, fast and efficient. Okay, let's try that again. Scrape this down. Get that going while we whisk this together again. Okay. Now I do have an old cake recipe on my channel. It is good, but it's a little bit harder to work with because it's really thick. I didn't know I could use as much whey as I do now. I used to use way more coconut flour, so the batters were really thick and hard to work with. So I have a Hershey's chocolate cake made keto with my old chocolate cake recipe, but if you use this cake, it'll be even better. And way lower carb. Okay, I'm actually gonna start with the cupcakes. I know I wanna put those at 55 grams each. That's just the way I do all my cupcakes at, pretty much. I want them about 3/4 of the way full. We need 2 teaspoons of vinegar in our baking soda. Mix it up, pour it in, and mix it up really well, especially if you're doing all cupcakes. If you don't mix it enough, you'll have some like big blowouts in your cupcakes. So you want to make sure it's really well mixed if you're doing all cupcakes. And then we're going to divide the rest of the batter between 2 8-inch round pans. I usually use this middle red scoop, but I kind of like mound it up and put it in. 55. I'm gonna throw these in the oven. They should take about 16 minutes. $560. So I got a tiny bit left in here. A little bit over there, a little bit in this one. You wanna use all the batter. It's all counted in your macros. No wasting. I believe these should take about 22 minutes. I'm gonna start with 10. I'm gonna rotate them halfway through and kind of gauge how much more time I need. Okay, that's been 8 minutes on the cupcakes. Let's set it for another 6. Okay, they both just went off. That needs a couple more minutes, I think. And so do those. Do another 2 on the cupcakes. That was 2 more minutes on the cupcakes. Let's see if they're done. Those are all set. Okay, it's been about 22 minutes. They're still soft in the middle, so probably gonna need another 2. Feeling not too soft anymore. I'm gonna take them out. I might do the toothpick test on them, or just use a metal pokey tool. Looks like they have a little bit of batter on them still. Do another 2 minutes. This will all depend widely on your oven and also how many times you open your oven. This one is raw and that one isn't, so we're gonna put this one back in. I also want to get new ovens because this definitely does not cook evenly. We're gonna let those cool until we can touch them, and then we're gonna pop them out and put them on a cooling rack to cool completely. I usually just give them a tap, and if they don't seem like they're coming off the edges, I'll go around. Perfect cake. It smells so good. Super soft and fluffy. Now, I've been doing some calculating, and the nice thing about using buttercream frosting is that it keeps it pretty low carb. With using whipped cream and whipped ganache, it makes it kind of high in carbs. My whole family isn't keto, so it doesn't really matter for them. These gotta cool completely, and then we can make the whipped cream to fill them. I was debating on doing 4 layers, but then we'll need more whipped cream, so I don't know. Haven't decided yet. Be back when these are completely cooled. Okay, our cake's been chilling for a couple of hours. We're gonna get on to making the whipped cream filling for it. So this is another one of my recipes that I have a video for, so I'll link that up there for you. Some stabilized whipped cream. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I'm gonna do the gelatin version today. And I'm gonna estimate how much I need, and I'm going to actually measure how much I put in the cupcake and on the cake so that I can figure out macros for everything. The best way to do this, especially for keto, is just do cupcakes because they're always gonna be lower carb than a slice of cake. And all the keto baked goods freeze great, even ones with whipped cream and stuff on them. We're gonna start with 8 ounces of heavy cream. I'm gonna make more rather than less because I don't wanna remake it because it's not like the easiest thing in the world, and it'd be a pain to wash the stuff and then have to remake it. So we're gonna start there. Like I said, my sister-in-law doesn't like erythritol, so I'm going to sweeten this in a different way. I happened to buy some Chalk Zero Irish cream syrup on sale, I think it was. I'm gonna use some of this in there, and if it's not sweet enough, I'm gonna use some stevia drops. Obviously, like I'm showing you here, you can flavor it however you want, sweeten it however you want. It all will work. I have a lot of base recipes you can combine and make whatever flavor or style of cake you want. So to that, we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of this. I might start with 1 actually. I don't know how strong these syrups are. I've never had them before, so start off little if you don't know how sweet something is. So while that's coming to soft peaks, I'm gonna get a tablespoon of cold water and a teaspoon of gelatin bloomed in that water. Okay, that's almost to soft peaks. You see I'm pouring out some of the cupcake because we're gonna put some whipped cream inside, and then we're gonna cover it with the whipped ganache. They make tools for this. I just don't see the point in buying them. So I'm gonna let this go a couple more seconds and heat this on low power for like 10-second intervals until it's just melted. Okay, we're all melted. It actually is sweet enough, and might just add a tiny splash of the extract, but it's pretty Irish creamy tasting. Okay, so have a mini whisk ready, a big spoon, put a big dollop in there, give it a whisk, turn on your mixer. Add it back in. There we go. We got stiff gelatinized whipped cream. Just put some in a piping bag. We're not going to need a lot for each one. Just use a Ziploc bag too. So only 0.2 ounces in each one. Yep. So that's probably still only 1 net carb because we took out some of the cake too. So if you did 30, I'll have to do the math for you, and I'll put it all down below and in the video here because that's too much math for me to do right now. I normally level this off a little bit. It's going to do a tiny bit off the top, get it nice and smooth. In this cake, you definitely could cut into 4 layers and then do thin layers of whipped cream in between. I don't think I'm going to do that. Should I do that? I always debate it, I never know what to do. I'll do 4 ounces. We'll do 6 ounces. It is quite a big layer. This one wasn't as domed. Squish it down, and I'm gonna throw this into the refrigerator to completely set up while we whip our ganache up. It's gonna be a pretty tall cake. Okay, I'm gonna get it cleaned up here and we'll get on to the ganache. Okay, our ganache is set up. Just a little bit soft, which is fine. I still got my scale here. I'm gonna measure how much ganache I put on each cupcake so I can get the macros for you there. Math and macros is all a pain in the butt, but we gotta do what we gotta do, right? If we want our desserts that are delicious and homemade. This is very easy. You just whip it up, scrape it down a couple times, whip it until it's the fluffiness you like, and then frost your cake. Make it super light and fluffy. Still got some streaks down there. They're all incorporated. Smells delicious. That looks good. It's stiffened up enough to be a frosting. I'm going to use the 1M tip. It's one that will make a kind of rose decoration. This tip helps you get a really pretty topping without having to put a ton of frosting on. It does stiffen up quite quick, so you might have to re-whip as you're working. And I also have a tiny bit of yellow sprinkles left. I really need to make another batch of my keto sprinkles. And now I keep them separate so you can choose which ones you want for different occasions, so they're not all together. That was 0.7 ounces of ganache. A couple of yellow sprinkles on top for St. Patty's Day. I'm all out of green sprinkles. And that was 0.7 ounces of frosting on each one. There we go. There's our Alycia's Keto Irish Cream cupcakes. They look delicious. Now let's frost the cake. I am gonna give that another whip because it's very stiff now. Put the rest of our frosting in there. Before you start frosting, clean off your whatever board or plate you're gonna be having this on. Get this on and spread out. That was 10 ounces, 10.6. You don't need a big layer of this because it is so decadent. Just do a thin layer on this. It's already set up on top and on the sides. This is gonna be a little bit rustic of a cake. You just don't want cake showing through anywhere. You can't always get like a hot spatula and like smooth everything out. I think she'll like it anyway. We might have enough to do piping around the top. Okay, just gotta whip this up. I'm gonna put it in a piping bag and do some rosettes around the edge, if we have enough. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do 16. Just do little ones. One. I don't think we're gonna be able to get 8 more out of here. So that's 16 if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So I will be back to try the cupcakes as soon as I'm done decorating the top of this. Okay, I'm back after much messing with numbers on my recipe app, which actually spits out a nutrition label, and sometimes it's kind of frustrating because it doesn't make sense all the time. It's saying 8 carbs for a 1/16 of this cake, but a lot of times that's why I suggest not making a whole cake and making cupcakes instead, because it's hard to get a 1/16 of this cake and it look like a serving, but it's still super high in carbs and calories and fat. But same thing with these. I multiplied how much cream and the chocolate ganache and stuff we would need. And to me, in my recipe app, my cupcakes are 1 carb each. We only put 0.2 heavy cream in the middle, which is less than a tablespoon, so that's not even a carb. And then 0.7 for the frosting, which is a tablespoon and a half. So count it 1 carb for the cream and then 1 carb for a ½ an ounce of the Baked Believe semi-sweet chocolate chip. So in my head, you would think that's 3 grams net carbs, but in the recipe app, it says 4. So it all depends on what you use for your macros and stuff like that. But all I'm eating tonight is broccoli with some Alfredo sauce. So, but I'm not gonna eat a whole one, and I'll probably take one of these over for myself to eat instead of a slice of cake. But let's unwrap one of these and cut it open. Taste this and see how much it tastes like Baily's. My cupcake, super soft. Yeah. Frosting gets hard even at room temperature, but it like melts in your mouth, kind of like a truffle center, but even lighter than a truffle center. I need to make some Hostess cupcakes. That's what that reminds me of. Let's give it a taste. That is Irish cream. My cake is just super soft and fluffy. It's not super sweet. We didn't add any extra stevia or erythritol or anything in there. So just a rich chocolate flavor, a little bit of cream. It's delicious. So I hope you guys like this video and it encourages you to make your own little keto creation using all the different recipes I have on my channel. I'll be linking the cake and frosting playlist at the end. Playlists are the best way to find what you want on my channel. I have over 300 videos. I think at least 200 are recipes, if not more. So there's a lot there, but I purposely put them into playlists for you so it's super easy to find what you're looking for. Breakfast, or cookies, or cake, or ice cream, all that stuff. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link is down in the description box below for all the stuff I use every day in the kitchen, along with the blog link to the full recipe. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with more keto, low carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto creation making.